America's big tech companies are literally ruining careers and lives. Yes, I said it. This week, Meta laid off 3,600 employees, claiming that these were poor performers, and this was 5% of their entire workforce. When such a reputed company which is raking in profits, it is very disappointing to see that they are stigmatizing the laid off employees this way. When you get laid off, there is stigma to it as it is. And then guess what happens when these laid off employees start looking for jobs? They have already been branded as poor performing employees. In America, companies are always free to lay off employees. But when the job market is already so tough, is it really fair what Meta did? The job market is already flooded with very talented people who are looking for opportunities. And then publicly announcing that these laid off employees were not good quality is just morally wrong. And believe me when I say this, working for similar top tech companies in the US is destroying many careers, not just because of layoffs. There are other reasons which I will elaborate in this video today. But before we get there, it is really important to understand the background of this, why it happens, how does it happen, and so on. Simply put, all these big tech companies care a lot more about their shareholders, the investors. They do not care so much about their employees. And to be a bit fair to these big tech companies, they're always under pressure from various quarters. They're always facing lawsuits, sometimes intellectual property lawsuits. They are facing mishandling lawsuits from their former employees, discrimination lawsuits, and so on. Then they have a lot of pressure from regulatory authorities regarding following the rules and regulations. Then their business partners, that includes their buyers and suppliers, are always putting pressure on these companies. And the basic premise of all of this is that particularly the investors in larger tech companies tend to be risk averse. When you consider medium to small size companies, they almost never face monopoly issues and they do not usually have regulations thrusted upon them. Medium to small size companies are free to grow without much regard for investor confidence. In fact, when it comes to medium to small size companies in which investors see high potential, they're actually risk seeking. But on the flip side, when it comes to large tech companies, investors have a lot to lose because they have already invested quite a big amount of money on them. And these large tech companies have a lot to lose when investors start pulling away. And therefore, it is very important for these large tech companies to maximize their profits and give dividends to their investors. And one key method to increase profits is by reducing capital expenditure. Capital expenditure, if you do not know, is the expenditure that the companies incur regularly. Sometimes it is because of equipment, sometimes it is because of infrastructure, new developments, and so on. But the largest capital expenditure that companies usually incur is to do with paying for their employees. These companies need to pay for employee benefits, they need to pay for their cafeteria, they need to pay for real estate when these employees are working from office, and so on. And therefore, from the large company perspective, if they can reduce their capital expenditure on their employees, they can become more profitable sooner. And the sooner they become more profitable, the sooner their investors will be pleased and they will not pull away. In fact, it will encourage more people to buy their shares. And when more people buy their shares, their share price goes up and their market capital increases. And because large companies usually do not follow lean business models, they are even encouraged to lay people off to make more profits. Because the fundamental aspect to it is that these large companies know that whenever they post any open position, they will get a lot of response from the market. A lot of people will be looking for jobs, so they will never have problem hiring for any position that they open. So if they know that they can hire anytime, they can also fire anytime. But between all of this, from an employee perspective, there are 4 reasons why working for these top tech companies can ruin your career. And I'm not going to mince my words, I will just tell it as it is. The first reason working at a top tech company can hurt you is that when you're hired by these large big tech companies, you are assigned a role which is narrow focused. You're limited to a small portion of that company. The company is already established. It has already defined how it handles its business. All its business processes, all its technologies are already well defined and the projects are already assigned. So you'll be working on a small project in the comparison of the large company. You'll be working on a small project in a small team, which means that your job will be highly specialized. You're not likely going to be associated with its core product. And the more specialized your job is, the less opportunities will be for you outside of that market. And the more specialized and focused your job is, your skills will be aligned to that narrow job. You will not have the larger picture. You will not have any idea of the larger operations. When you start interviewing for other companies, The skills that you have learned in this large company may not easily transfer to smaller or other tech companies. And in many cases, it might be near impossible for you to get exactly the same job. Other alternate opportunities that you might want to get could be limited to a certain geographical area. Let's say if you are in a specialized tech company, you will be restricted to a few locations in the world. And if you try to use your experience from that company outside of that particular geographical area, you might find it very difficult, if not impossible. To give you a very simple example, let's say you are a chip designer. Let's say you have expertise in specific area of chip designing, in something to do with hardware designing. Now, how many companies there are? There are a handful of companies. Now, if your entire life experience is in a narrow area of your work, can you readily transfer your skills to something else? Not really. And because of this, the more techie you are, the more geeky you are, the harder it will be for you if you get laid off. And forget laid off, even if you're not happy with your team, if you're not happy with your boss, you might actually find it quite difficult to move on. Now let us come to the second reason. The second reason working at a top tech company might actually hurt your career is because once you join that company, you will get handsome salary, you will be very happy with your package, they will give you good benefits and so on. And then you will have unrealistic expectations out of other job opportunities that you might want to avail. If at all you accept a job offer at a smaller company at a different location, it will be only because of the compulsions that were enforced upon you. Possibly you are running out of money, possibly you need to save your visa status and so on. And therefore, in many cases, if you have a green card application pending, you don't want to start your entire process from scratch. So people choose to suffer through their green card backlogs, through bad bosses and so on, just so that they can keep themselves put and they can survive in this job market. A very important point to remember is that if you get laid off, your health insurance also ends on the last day of your job because it is a part of your benefits that are provided by your employer. Finding the right insurance plan in such a situation can be very overwhelming, especially when you have to do it on your own. And that is where Visitors Coverage Insurance comes in to make things easy for you. Visitors Coverage is a global marketplace for travel insurance specifically designed to cater to all types of travelers, including international students studying in the US. Whether you are a new student just starting your journey or someone who's already studying here, Visitors Coverage provides a wide range of insurance options to best fit your needs and budget. Their platform is super user-friendly, allowing you to easily find a plan that suits your unique requirements, from basic coverage to more comprehensive requirements. And the best part, you can compare different plans side by side to see which one offers the best coverage for you at the right price. So, no matter where you are from or what your specific needs are, Visitors Coverage has got you covered. If you are interested in checking out any of their plans, click on the link in the description below to start exploring your options. The third reason why it can hurt you is because in the job market, there are far too many people like you. And when other companies are hiring, they are looking for people who can learn their business. For people in big tech companies, they'll have to unlearn things that they've already learned and then learn from scratch at a smaller company. And because of this, a lot of small and medium-sized companies prefer to hire people with less experience, people who are open to learning, people who they can train, people who they can groom and make sure that these employees are high energy and will do anything and everything to make sure that the company succeeds. But if they try to do the same thing from someone who had worked for a big tech company, well, they might have a difficult time. Because when they have worked for a big tech company, sometimes they become too strongly opinionated, they become too hard-headed, and therefore small to medium-sized companies want to avoid these people coming out from big tech companies. And the last and the final reason, which is quite similar to the third reason, is that smaller and medium-sized companies may not even have the right roles for you. When they have a job opening, they would look for people with experience in the same domain as the position for which they are hiring. No matter how strong your skills are, no matter how good you are at learning, they would want someone who can hit the ground running. Therefore, if you have worked on generic software rather than specialized software, you are preferred. And usually, those people who can work on a generic piece of software are those who have worked for other smaller and mid-sized companies. Your profile may simply not suit their requirements anymore. In many cases, it might actually work out better for a smaller medium-sized company if they even hire a fresh college graduate rather than hiring someone experienced who has worked for big tech companies before. Because increasingly, the trend is that fresh college graduates are taking the latest classes online or at their universities. They are more aware of new technologies, especially the nascent technologies that are just picking up, and these fresh college graduates are more amenable to learning those things. In many cases, they have already learned those things because they had not been working in a very scheduled and very busy job before. Whereas your opportunities to learn are limited sometimes if you're in a big tech company and you're working under a lot of pressure, especially with deadlines and time constraints. So in conclusion, these were my views why sometimes working at top tech companies can be hard on you. Now, these are not hard rules, there are always exceptions. So one tip I have for you is that if you ever crack the job interview at a top company, be humble. Just update your LinkedIn profile, but do not start bragging. Do not start praising that I want to thank these 20 people, those 40 people. I would like to thank this person who recruited me, this and that. Don't get into all that drama. Just stay put your head down, get into your job and be humble. And it is also very important to keep in touch with as many people as possible from other companies. Keep in touch with other people to learn what they are doing in their jobs so that if such a need arises where you need to leave your company or when you're laid off or you're fired, you can possibly get alternate opportunities at some other companies. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind and God bless America.